Hey everybody, and welcome back to another My Hero Academia review. It's been a while since I've made one of these and I've fallen quite far behind in the episodes, so I figured I'd pick up where I left off and work my way through from there. A quick thing to note before I get started is that I have read the manga and I'm aware of any relevant future plot points and details. But for the purpose of these reviews, I only really like to talk about what the anime's presented up to now and not go back and forth between the manga and the anime. It just helps to keep the review streamlined and lets anime-only fans watch along and join in too. So, that being said, let's jump into the episode where we'll witness the second part of the third battle between classes 1A and 1B. When we left off, the teams had paired off into little mini-battles, with Shoji and Todoroki facing off with Pony and Tetsu, Juzo facing Ida, and Kaibara facing Ojiro. We start off this episode watching the continued confrontation between Mudman and Ingenium, who's just freed himself from being trapped inside ice from Mudman's quirk by using his new and improved super move Recipro Turbo. And this essentially turns him into the Flash for about 10 minutes before his engine legs stall. Ida's one of those characters that looked like he was going to be really important in seasons 1 and 2, and then he kind of fell by the wayside and hasn't really been used in exciting ways since. So I'm glad he's getting some time to shine and can actually do something impressive. The only downside to this move is that he goes so fast that he can't actually control it completely, but considering how Mudman's struggling to fight him at all, I think that's a pretty fair trade-off. But unfortunately for Ida, unlike many of the other members of Class A and B, Mudman actually has a brain and realizes there's no point in continuing to fight and allowing himself to be eliminated for pride. So he sinks into the ground and swims away to try and help Tetsu, and hopefully run out Ida's turbo timer. Back in the viewing area, Midoriya's team gushes about Ida's new and improved abilities, with Deku stating that with the power-up, he's even faster than Gran Torino, so hopefully this means more from Ida in the future. We then move on to the battle between Spiral and Tailman, with the two having a good old-fashioned martial arts showdown. Unfortunately though, even though Tailman has improved, he's still considered just pretty ordinary, and thus Spiral pretty much whoops him in a pretty brutal fashion considering every time he hits him with the drill fingers, he can rip chunks off him. And this is an absurdly brutal quirk and support item, especially for a training exercise. As Spiral goes for the finishing blow however, Ida appears out of nowhere and grabs him, still using his turbo, and drags him towards the jail. Even as Spiral sulks and screams, calling him a stick in the mud, and complaining about him interfering in his one-on-one battle. We then move on to Todoroki and Shoji versus Pony and Tetsu, where Shoto continually spams his ice attack on Tetsu with poor results, much to Bakugo's amusement. So we can see that Endeavor's abuse still hasn't really been resolved for Shoto, as he still hesitates when using his flames, considering a last resort even now. And I like that. There's really no need to rush this kind of development, considering this is pretty much his entire arc. As Tetsu's steel fists of justice can't be beaten by ice, Shoto finally decides to use his flames, whilst directing Shoji to face off against Pony. Unfortunately for Shoto though, Tetsu proves that he is a beast, revealing that he's been training his steel's heat resistance by sitting in ovens. And that's a pretty yikes training method, but I guess it worked. Pretty hardcore though. He then manages to get in close to Shoto, picks him up by the scruff, and gives him a good old-fashioned wallop to the stomach, which unluckily for him triggers Shoto's memories of Endeavor's abusive training when he was a child. Also, getting bludgeoned in the stomach by a man made of steel, goodbye ribs, hello ruptured organs. They really have no concept of chill at this school. And then, after another brutal blow to the face, hello cracked jaw, goodbye teeth, Shoto remembers Deku's words about how his quirk is his alone to use and control, and that he shouldn't be held back by his dad. We then hear the inspirational Endeavor theme kick in, and Shoto powers up his flames beyond what they were before, causing Tetsu to recoil in pain, and the heat to destroy the camera equipment. Then he has a little speech that echoes Endeavor's speech at the end of Season 4, declaring that he has to keep raising the temperature and go higher than before in order to become who he wants to be. And man, I really enjoyed this. Shoto arguably has the coolest quirk in all of My Hero, so seeing him show it off is awesome to see. Tetsu then goes beyond as well, pushing through the intense flames and grabbing hold of Shoto where the two engage in a battle of wills, with Shoto superheating Tetsu's steel whilst Tetsu pummels him over and over, forcing Shoto to once again raise the heat. And honestly, this is one fight that would realistically result in two corpses. After those knees, Shoto's insides would be red goo. And if Tetsu loses consciousness, wouldn't he die as well as his steel form dissipates? It would be too hot for him to exist. Still cool though. We then cut away to see Pony fleeing the blazing inferno as she's pursued by Tentacle. After mocking him, telling him that she never looks at the octopuses in the aquarium, which is pretty harsh to basically call him gross, she then unleashes a flurry of her thunderhorns at him, which he then punches away with his many arms. And man, his hands must really hurt though, considering how hard a material horn is, and the fact that he's punching the very tip as they come towards him at lightning speed. Beyond having heaps of arms, he must have some kind of super strength. And I could believe it, considering he is a unit and built like a tank. After blocking a sneak attack horn, Shoji then for some reason alerts Pony to the fact that Ojiro's about to kick her head in from above. And then Ojiro goes and grabs her and ties her with his tail. And I'm not sure why Shoji didn't allow for the sneak attack to knock her out and take her out of the battle, but there you go. Mudman then appears and sucks the three of them to the ground before Ojiro somehow causes a mini tornado with his tail that has enough force to launch Mudman across the battlefield. And this shows that he actually has some reasonable abilities, but it's quite honestly dumbfounding. Not sure why you haven't been using these moves like that until now, mate. In the chaos, Pony somehow releases 4 more horns and fully impales Ojiro's tail. And my god, this dude is going through the wars, getting chunks ripped off him by Spiral, and now this. She then uses her horns to fly over to the prison with Ojiro and eliminates him from the match, leaving the score at 1-1. Side note, I swear Class 1B is significantly more brutal than 1A. They seemingly have no self-awareness or care if they could kill somebody. Yes, it's training, and they're meant to be testing themselves, but they're literally not holding back on any brutality at all. Anyway, back at the Inferno showdown, Tetsu begins to mock Shoto, asking why he's slowing down. Shoto thinks about how while Tetsu's slowing too, he's worse off, getting worn down and dizzy from both the beatings and the intense heat, but realizes that he can't back down until Tetsu backs off. He then hears his father's voice telling him he needs to push past his limits and powers up even further, even as Tetsu's steel has worn off, so this would be a killing blow. I mean, it would definitely melt him. Luckily, Mudman saves the day, sinking Todoroki and causing a massive steel pipe to fall on his neck and knock him out of the fight, whilst also, realistically, breaking his neck and killing him if this wasn't an anime. Seriously, 1B has no chill. As Mudman's about to seal Todoroki in an attempt to immobilize him, he catches Ida's hands powered up by a Recipro, obliterating his helmet and probably giving him a severe concussion. Ida then goes to help Shoto and has to make a choice. Finish off Tetsu or save Todoroki. Remembering that a hero's main job is to save people, he flees with Todoroki. Whilst Mudman, losing consciousness after that big hit, realizes it was a mistake to run away from Ida and leave him for later. Remembering how Momo managed to help her team after her defeat and not wanting to let his team down, Mudman and Tetsu team up for one last attack before losing consciousness to knock what looks like a goddamn silo down on Ida and crush him, removing him from the fight as well as leaving only Shoji and Pony able to continue. And my god, these people, once again, are just not playing around. They're going all out, and this is probably the most brutal of all the battles so far. I feel like the only thing that can compare is growing mushrooms inside somebody's lungs. Back at the viewing area, Vlad continues with his extremely biased commentary, somehow linking the fact that Spiral struggled when he was captured by Ida, to the fact that Ida was unable to outrun Tetsu and Mudman's double team attack. He then declares that Spiral is the match's MVP despite being eliminated first, and the fact that it was actually Mudman that took out Ida, much to the frustration of Class 1A. We then cut back to the final heroes who are either free from jail or still able to fight, Pony and Shoji, who are pretty much an even match. Pony has more speed and agility thanks to the horn she can fly around on, but Shoji would beat her in a one-on-one battle any day of the week. And it seems that like Mudman, Pony has learned the subtle art of running away to save the day, using her horns to grab Mudman and Tetsu to prevent Shoji grabbing them and taking them to jail for the win, whilst also grabbing Todoroki as well. Realizing that she can't outrun Shoji or even hope to beat him, she uses her horns to fly up into the air with her hostage and teammates to avoid Shoji and run out the clock. In the viewing area, Deku explains all this whilst also revealing that taking Todoroki is like insurance. If he wakes up, he'd be in danger if he attacks because they'll just let him drop, whereas if they left him on the ground, he could attack them if he woke. So in actuality, Pony is out here acting like the true MVP, preventing her team from taking the L. The clock then runs out, and Deku reflects on the fact that despite it being a draw, Ida acted like a true hero and was very cool, with it being revealed that he threw Todoroki to safety to prevent him getting crushed too. Chad Ida. In the nurse's office, Todoroki wakes up from his traumatic head injury to find Ida sitting with him with a cast over his arm and leg. Ouch. Tetsu comes in and tells him despite it being a draw, he feels like he lost the fight. Which is fair. His steel wore off and Shoto was about to finish him off when Juzo saved him and took Todoroki out of the fight. Ida reflects that he was too slow to stop Juzo and he needs to keep improving, and that if he'd been faster, they would have won. Shoto responds that it was his mistake that caused their almost defeat, remembering that he attacked first with ice instead of fire, which allowed Mudman to separate them all at the start. He realizes that he uses his ice out of habit, and that because of that, he made Ida worry. And thus, he wants to keep striving to be a hero that can bring people peace of mind, like All Might. And that's a relationship that isn't really explored all that much. Despite him being a bit of an All Might fanboy just like Deku and Bakugo, the story more focuses on his connection to Endeavor and not really on All Might at all. It would be nice to see that interaction much more and maybe some jealousy on Endeavor's part. Juzo then appears from behind the curtain like he's the Wizard of Oz and tells them he also wants to improve and face off against them again before they all get booted out by Recovery Girl. Back at the joint training exercise viewing area, Monoma has a short breakdown laughing about how 1A must be so ashamed of a draw, and that they'll lose the next match because it has Takage in it before deciding that taunting Bakugo directly is a smart idea. At the arena, Bakugo's team reacts in shock to his proposed plan before the match gets underway and the credits roll. Cliffhangers. And that brings us to the end of the episode, and it was a pretty good one. This most recent battle was pretty brutal, and Class B in particular showed a really ruthless side, which is both entertaining and kind of anger-inducing considering you're set up to root for Class 1A. And I still swear, somebody could have been killed. This school is negligent. Maybe keep an eye on that, teachers. That being said, those are just my thoughts, and now I'd like to hear yours. Did you enjoy the episode? Maybe not? Make sure to leave a comment and let me know.